Hey there, this is Andrew, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a deck that I already have open. This is a deck that I played pretty extensively uh, since opening it. I got to give a shout out to Fatal Pooch or Jackie W from Australia who asked me about it and uh, expressed some interest in it, which caused me to look into it more. So that's sorry, it's pretty good, and um, it I hadn't started messing around with it much until then. So thanks to him, he is good at spotting good decks. So much appreciated. He's a good guy. So anyway, what's special about this deck? Well, uh, I've talked about archetypes before, and I should double check. I should double check this. I'm pretty sure I went over the idea of just having a good stuff deck, and that's definitely what this is. It just kind of has a lot of good stuff and is consistently able to do good things and respond to things that the opponent might throw your way. And so it does not have a crazy gimmick for bringing about a win. It just has a lot of good things that move you that direction, and it pretty consistently has answers for what the opponent is trying to do. So in 50 games on competitive TCO, it's lost 7 times, which is a pretty good record. I want to get that up to at least 100 before too long, but life. And hey, here I am recording a video. So, uh, yeah, but in 50 games, it's lost 7 times, which is a pretty good record. And let's see, what else? Yeah, I guess might as well go ahead and get into it. So this is Iyapo, Changeling of the Vorpal Cliff. It's a mass mutation deck uh, with Shadows, Logos, and Dees. Oh, I should say, the SAS on this thing is 83, which is good, but below what some people would even consider for competitive. So, um, but uh, one of the things I've talked about with friends on my team on ABR is the idea of having a deck that never auto loses, that there's no matchup that this deck will just automatically lose to. And I think that's very true of this. So, all right, let's start going through. We'll start with Dees. Brabble, it's a fine creature. It's just fine. This isn't amazing. It's just fine. But a little bit of amber control, plinky amber control really helps. Gateway to Dees, very important when you need it. Obviously, when you don't need it, it's a dead card, but very, very important to have a card like this available. Then we have a lot of spot removal that's going to come up. We have an Implosion. That's very nice. Sometimes that can keep someone off a key in combination with the Brabble or some other things I have going on. Usually I have something I don't mind destroying on my side, and getting to spot remove opponent's creatures is very valuable. And there are even some scenarios where this is better than a board wipe because maybe they have a Prefectus Ludo behind, uh, a Harbinger, or not a Harbinger, but a Brooded on Auxiliary with a lot of Amber on it or something, and this lets you kill the, whatever they're trying to protect without having to kill the thing you don't want to kill. Infernus, obviously a very strong card, and it's especially strong against combo decks where you can just say, hey, you can't ever do that again, and remove problems from the game. It's very nice to be able to just remove problems from the game. In games against other decks with Infernus, sometimes I'll try to prioritize getting rid of their Infernuses first, and then it's actually not uncommon for this deck. You'll see when we get to the logos, but it's not uncommon for this deck to like cycle 2 to 3 times, even during a pretty quick game. All right, Mark of Dees, great control card. Can't complain about that. Mindfire. So this one's interesting. I usually don't love Mindfire, but there are some decks where they're going to hold their combo, and if you can't knock it out of their hand, you're going to lose. This gives you a chance against those situations. And there's another card that comes up later that also can help, but this is really good for that reason. When you get the steal, great, but If you can hit a combo piece, it's very nice. And getting to combo this with the Infernus, where you sometimes can knock a combo piece out of their hand and then immediately purge it, can be quite good. Cinder, just okay, just fine. I have gotten into situations where there's a Stirring Grave coming up where it makes sense to like play the Infernus, reap the Cinder, destroy the Infernus, and then Stirring Grave it. So there's cool stuff like that. Snarette, this is a big deal, very helpful. Obviously, just some consistent amber control when this stays on the board, and then it becomes a threat they have to deal with. Yeah, it's quite good. Got that Stirring Grave I mentioned. Oftentimes, I want to bring back the Infernus, but there's other things. There's other things we'll talk about. Then we have 2 copies of Wail of the Damned. Um, this is fine. This card is just fine. But it is good spot removal. I think I would rather have 2 more implosions just for the amber pips, even though you have to kill your own creature. But these work out really well, so I can't complain about them. And yeah, they work quite well. And then this is pretty cool. So this is a Legacy Poltergeist, and the reason this is awesome is first off, it's artifact control in a good deck. So having a good deck that has artifact control gives it a leg up over situations where your opponent might have there are certain artifacts that are just really tough to deal with, And Poltergeist says, nope, I can deal with them. It's destructive artifact control, so that's really helpful. You get a use in there. And notice this deck, we haven't seen an artifact yet, and there is one coming up. But having a Poltergeist in a deck with a single artifact is pretty great. I don't have to worry about am I destroying something really valuable that I should keep? Nope, I'm pretty much always going to play this. The question is, do I hold it for a better time? But really helpful. I've used it against Quixelstone. Haven't run it against Heart yet, but obviously it would be effective for that. And again, as we'll see in the logos, being able to cycle pretty quickly means I can sometimes use it multiple times per game. All right, into logos. Daughter, that's obviously going to help us out. Effervescent Principle, that's a really important amber control card. Sometimes people can burst up pretty high, and this is a way to bring them back down. Lethologica with a capture pip, that's fun. I'm always going to play the Letho, and getting a little capture here and there is quite good. Munchling, it's fine. This is a fine creature. Quixo, also fine. Standardized Testing, another board wipe. This is solid. This one has a capture icon on it. Notice that I don't have a lot of big creatures. I have the Cinder, but other than that, I don't have a ton of big creatures here. And it's often the case that I'm able to, my opponent has a 3 and a 5, and I dropped a 4 on the board. I'm capturing onto that and destroying the things around it. So, important board control there. Discombobulator, we actually have 2 copies of those. Being able to turn off stealing, very effective. And there are some decently resilient creatures to put it on. Sometimes I put it on the Daughter because it has elusive. Cinder's not a bad choice, although usually I am quick to let the Cinder die. Sometimes there's some other creatures coming up that I'd like to put on as well, such as Groupthink Tank, because this is really resilient. 4 power with 3 armor, it lives, and it's important board control in certain circumstances. Otherwise, it's just a big body that can fight or reap and hold a Discombobulator, so pretty good. Sloppy Lab Work gets through the deck fast, that's great. Entropic Swirl, this is one of my favorite cards. It's a good card. Sometimes I like to use this to destroy my own creatures and generate amber. Sometimes I'm destroying the enemies, but I don't think, maybe once I've had it fizzle. It almost never fizzles, and usually I'm able to get 2 amber out of it. And it's great because this is like good amber generation that does not feed an opponent's Infernus. And there's Zenzi. So good. So there are times now Zenzi's also a good vehicle for the Discombobulator because Zenzi's pretty beefy. Zenzi also often fits in between standardized testing hits. And it's not uncommon to be able to have Zenzi on the board with Daughter, and in those cases, drawing to 9 is pretty great. I almost always hard mole for the Zenzi because it's just so good in this deck to cycle through. Um, okay, we're going to get into shadows in a second, but one thing I just want to point out, there aren't any dud cards in here. I don't think there's a single card that we've seen so far that I would just say, oh, I never want that. Again, Whale of the Damned, maybe most of the time I'd want an Implosion instead, but hey, those capture icons, I forget about those. Everything is doing something, and so that's when I said, like, there's no real gimmick in this deck except draw a lot of cards. But it's not crazy. It's not like you're drawing your own hand. There's just no dead cards. Um, Once in a while, Effervescent just gets discarded, but that's okay. It's often quite good and decides the game. So very helpful. Okay, and so when you're drawing 9 good cards per turn, it's fantastic. And I often have opponents complaining, there's no way you would draw that many cards from that house in one turn. But when you're drawing 9, your hand shaping abilities are substantial, and even when you're drawing 8. So, um, yeah, and with the Dees, I'm usually able to control their board to be able to keep Zenzi resilient, except when the opponent just has a hard wipe. Okay, shadows. Demo Thief is a good card. Destroyed, seal 1, fantastic. That makes it a good target for the whales, for the implosion, for the cinder reap. Um, Drop it down, and then standardized testing the next turn is just a great little card. So love Demo Thief. Darkwave, some more decent board control. Obviously against mutant decks, this does nothing, but still pretty good. And the nice thing is it does not chew through the Zenzi's armor, right? It chews the armor, but it doesn't actually put damage on the Zenzi. The only time I might decide to discard this is if I have Daughter on the board and I don't want to kill Daughter. Then maybe I pitch Darkwave, but most of the time I'm just going to do it. Even destroying Bramble, that's great. Francis is fine, not amazing, but fine. Got Look Over There, good steal card. Rad Penny, fantastic. And again, when you're cycling pretty fast, Rad Penny gets played a lot. Seeker Needle with the Rad Penny, fantastic. And this is the one artifact in the deck. So again, if I Poltergeist my own Seeker Needle, it's really not the end of the world. But if I have it out there and can keep plinking the Rad Penny every time, it feels really good. Vandalize. So I mentioned the Mindfire being an important disruption piece because sometimes you can knock a combo piece out. Vandalize is even better for that. You're seeing something before it gets into their hand. You're seeing 1/12 of their deck when you hit Vandalize. Um, but that's decent, right? So you have a good chance of seeing something valuable, dropping it out of the deck, and then maybe being able to purge it the next turn. So this is ended up being a really valuable card for the control game. I like it. And then we have Borrow. Get to take an opponent's artifact. And that, I think, there aren't a lot of decks that have take an artifact and destroy an artifact. And so this deck is resilient both to, well, first of all, against artifacts that just need to go. Poltergeist is effective. But also, I've played games where opponents just pitch their artifacts because maybe they have an auto encoder, that's their only artifact, and they're like, I don't want to take the risk it's going to get borrowed. And so, yeah, it can be pretty rough. So, very, very effective card. And both of these work on, an artifact like a library card. The other day I was playing somebody out a library card. I played the Poltergeist, so I think they thought, okay, I'm okay here. They played the library card, and the next turn borrowed and popped it and drew a bunch of cards in shadows. So being able to do both those forms of artifact control is really nice. And again, there's enough creature control that it balances that out too. But having 2 artifact control cards that operate differently has been very helpful. We've got Old Bruno, some capture, slow the game down. That's fantastic. Ransack usually gets some steals. I've had it like steal 3 to 4 once in a while, but usually it's going to steal 1, maybe 2 if you're lucky. And oftentimes I'd rather get to draw the Shadows card anyway, so I'm not sad when it doesn't discard a lot of cards. but a little bit of steel, it's great. Okay, one last job. One last job is an interesting one here, and so it's a rare. So what it does is you purge each friendly shadows creature, and you steal 1 amber for each creature purged this way. Well, actually, let me come back to that thought because I'll show you the last creature. The last creature is Xenothief, which this is. If there's any card in here that's a dud, it's Xenothief. I don't like Xenothief. I don't love Francis, but I really don't like Xenothief. Elusive fight. Uh, this is a terrible, terrible ability. It doesn't even have skirmish. It's terrible. So that's maybe my one really dead card. But Xenothief, Francis, these are great targets for one last job. Purge them, steal, that's fantastic. Usually I can like reap with them and then do it, or maybe I just play them and do it. I'm very happy to do that, and that's thinning these cards out of my deck. They're gone forever. On my second and third deck run through, I don't have to deal with them. In a pinch, I have purged the Rad Penny or the Damo Thief. Old Bruno is an interesting case because in terms of raw slowdown, um, if you're just going for stopping power, Capture 3 is really good. But uh, which is better, Steal 1 or Capture 3? Um, it depends on the situation. So there are definitely situations where I've played the old Bruno in order to purge it with one last job. And one cool thing is that even if they, let's say they have 1 amber, you play the old Bruno and then purge it with one last job, old Bruno is completely purged, which means the amber goes back to their pool, and then you steal. So it is effective, and that can be really great. So even that probably was the one truly dead card in here. One last job turns into fine. It's fine. I've even got that fight effect to fire at least once, against a small creature. So it can happen, but mostly I hate Xenothief. But one last job turns it into it's just fine. So again, the thing I'll point out here, there's no fancy gimmick here. There's no here's the game plan, we're going to do this and then this and then this. It's just get good cards and play them. And and there's an answer to almost any bad situation. Probably the one thing I couldn't do anything about is if my opponent just had 1,000 amber, right? Effervescent wouldn't get me out of that, and there's nothing I could do. There's no hard stops. So that would be a weakness, but most decks don't go that high that fast, especially when you can kind of bounce back and forth between solid amber control that's keeping them low and also board control and some disruption. Um, anyway, so that's Iyapo, Changeling of the Vorpal Cliff. Um, like I said, it's doing great so far. Come fight me. Maybe you can bring my win rate down. I want to be realistic. I think 86% is probably unrealistic to expect to stay at, and I haven't used it in an actual online event or anything where it would be running against people trying to win money or something, but it seems pretty solid, so I'm excited about it. Anyway, and hopefully that gives you some insight too, not just into, what makes this a great deck, which is great, that's fine, but also into just what makes a good stuff deck that again doesn't have any coherent here's the game plan, but just does good things consistently and does work. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed and that you'll get out there and forge some keys.